Computer World Pakistan has been one of the oldest, technology publications or reporting mechanisms in Pakistan. And today we're excited to have with us Hira Zainab, the Secretary General at Pakistan Software Housing Association. And, it's an interesting conversation to be had. And I believe, the work that PASHA has put in, especially in the last few years, it really was based on the foundation that we need to support the ICT industry. I think that was the base foundation that was laid out, but there's been so much more that they have done. There's been a lot of recent updates that we've seen when it comes to policy, when it comes to bringing innovation or supporting that innovation in Pakistan, right? We've seen our companies take it to global stage because of the support they've received from PASHA. And we'd love to hear more about it because, despite everything that's gone on in the world and in Pakistan, the ICT industry has been one which has seen or made, waves across the world. So we'd love to hear more about it. So Hira, if we could start off with a brief introduction about yourself and about a little bit about your career background before we dive in.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you, Aksa. So I, as you're well aware, I'm Secretary General at PASHA, which is the representative body for the entire IT industry. And right now we have more than 1,000 companies that are registered with us, but we're representing more than 10,000 companies that exist in Pakistan. Before joining, I joined PASHA, earlier last year. It's been roughly 2 years now. But prior to joining PASHA, I was Executive Director and part of the Board of Directors at Knowledge Platform, which was a Singapore-based multinational. I spent a decade over there building products that I loved. So I spent my previous life in educational technologies, in designing, building, and piloting, and then scaling products as well. So LearnSmart Pakistan was Pakistan's first B2C AI platform, which currently has more than 200,000 students using it for online learning. LearnSmart Classroom is a B2B a product for schools to introduce technology for improving quality of education, and is currently being used by more than 1,000 schools, more than 200,000 students, and in process, obviously, I got to visit a lot of places in Pakistan, work with education sector in Pakistan very closely. So I spent a decade there. Before that, I have worked with British Council, worked on different youth empowerment projects, but while I spent a decade in EdTech, I wanted to take a step back and take a risk while I still can get in. I had, reached a point in my life which people aim to reach, and I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. So I felt that in PASHA that there's so much potential that PASHA can do, specifically because with IT industry having so much potential and PASHA being at the center of it all. So I wanted to, play my role in, unleashing that potential and strengthening PASHA after I joined. And that has been a little bit of, journey.
I'd like you to talk a little bit about, the milestones that you've seen, because you've been around in the industry and you've seen, especially because you took that plunge, as you said, in your career also. What are significant, milestones that you've seen in the ICT industry in Pakistan, particularly, that you can talk about, and then we'll see how PASHA has, of course, sort of been at the central force there.
No, so I mean, IT industry is the fastest growing industry in Pakistan, and the only industry with right now 77% trade surplus, only industry, which means that we have more exports and then very few imports. And what it means is that we often say that when you're talking about economic crisis that Pakistan is facing right now, IT industry is the future and is the solution to address that economic crisis. Supporting the livelihoods of more than 600,000 professionals, 300,000 in the IT industry, and more than 300,000 freelancers. So the industry has really proven to be the biggest force for the young population and creating jobs. And it's not a surprise because, we often say that in IT industry, all you need are three things. One, a resource, which is the mind, skill. Second, a device, and third, internet. These are all three things that you need just to be able to create a job and contribute to Pakistan. We have more than 10,000 companies, registered in the IT industry right now. We have crossed $2.6 billion exports, and IT industry has become the second largest exporter of Pakistan. First position is being reserved by textile. But just from the perspective of the journey that we see, so, a couple of years ago, I think IT industry was in 10th number or so. But just in few years, the growth IT exports have seen have really made it the second largest exporter in Pakistan. And so with all this growth and the rate that we are growing, Pakistan is growing, is very interesting because in PASHA, we also looked at the growth rate of other countries as well, in India, in Bangladesh, and similar countries in Philippines. And we found that Pakistan demonstrated the highest growth rate in the last 5 years, 147%. And that's as compared to our neighboring countries. So that shows the potential and promise that Pakistan has if there's a big if supported by the ecosystem, there is no reason why Pakistan cannot reach $10 billion in the next 3 years.
So on that note, I'd like to ask you, PASHA has also expanded its horizon in terms of the work that you're doing, right? And as I said in the beginning, it started with just, supporting or bringing together a club of professionals and organizations that are working in this industry, but it's gone to become so much more now, right? It's really become the name when it comes to ICT industry, you think of PASHA, right? A lot of your work has also gone into strengthening, of course, these associations amongst organizations amongst themselves, market intermediaries, universities, governments, grassroots groups who must all, of course, play their role effectively within the system, as you said, and ecosystem is what they need, right? If you could share some of the highlights, especially in the last 2 years that you've been around, what are some of the things that, you guys have worked on? And because we of course keep following the news about the regulatory or policy framework. And that is something that's not done overnight. It takes, I won't even say days, it takes months and sometimes years to really bring that to fruition. What would you say have been significant, and I'd like you to detail this out, significant developments on that front?
So I think if we take a step back, primarily our work as the representative body for the industry is divided into two broad categories, and then there are several subcategories. The first category is the, our work with the government, policy advocacy, and, representing the IT industry in the policy making and positioning IT industry in the government as well. And the second is industry development side. So, our work in the industry engagement, in the market development, in the skill development initiatives, in the global marketing, events and all that comes in all industry development activities. And the connection line between the two, which is actually these are two bigger pillars, and then there's the connecting pillar, and that is the research and insights. Because you need to get research and insights from the industry, and then you need to feed that to the government in order to make your voice more informed. Over the past, years, what we have, while we, started with the first goal was to just position IT industry in the government stakeholders. And the reason why it was very important was because, unfortunately, when we say technology, it can mean various things for various people. And as you are aware, there are different booms in Pakistan. So there's a buzzword which gets famous completely, whether you talk about startup, whether you talk about being a unicorn in Pakistan, whether you talk about when there was a boom of telco as well. So there is a very high tendency for something, a buzzword to catch traction. But if that buzzword does not have the depth or doesn't capture the insights that it takes for that buzzword to really take forward, then you don't see the results. And then it really fizzles down and it really, dims in some time. So in our case, one of the key thing was that we, at PASHA and all the people, PASHA has been really honored and pleased to have a lot of industry leaders working voluntarily and selflessly to advance, and position IT industry over the past 3 decades. So a lot of leaders had been positioning IT industry as the golden goose and as the potential, but it was never in the on the radar of the government. And there are several reasons for that. But for us, I think the key thing was to really start positioning the unique position and the unique factors that comes with the IT industry, and that are not there with other industry. For example, exports, for example, trade surplus, for example, ability to create job creation in a very fast way without any capex. As compared to factories or textile, you need to invest in factories. Creating awareness of knowledge economy versus industrial era, having more conversations around how IT industry is different from other industries and shouldn't be, treated with the same lens and should be, realized as a future of Pakistan. So a lot of these conversations over the years have happened, which ultimately made PASHA come up with then the slogan back in, I think, 2016-17 was of Digital Pakistan. So PASHA, first started, really advocating for a dream, a vision for Digital Pakistan. And then that dream was supported by different government officials and, different, with the passage of time, different leaders, different government leaders became part of the dream, became supporters of that dream. And then the movement started to really, catch on the traction. And over the years, then, we started really working with the government, drafting on how to now achieve that dream, what are the details of the Digital Pakistan, what are the, policies in that Digital Pakistan side. While there have been several wins, for example, tax exemption for the IT industry, which PASHA got, allowing IT industry to, to just, focus on the work and also working with, different government departments in revamping their structure to make it more industry driven and less of government driven. In discouraging government from competing with private sector. So a lot of different discussions and various wins. Primarily, one has been the tax exemption. Second has been establishment of special technology zones for promotion and advancement of the IT industry. That was again PASHA's pitch, and then eventually was accepted by the government, and then eventually came to the light of day. So while there have been various wins, it has actually started from just few people in the industry really believing in the potential of IT industry, and then others join that journey in making that dream come true. And it's only after consistent follow-up and years of effort that we are seeing that now actually everyone is talking about IT. Everyone has realized the awareness of IT. And in our case, after reaching that stage, that now in the position, so first stage was positioning IT. That was done through obviously narrative and as I mentioned, mapping out a journey. But then after the positioning, the second stage where we were on was, that we started now documenting our clear positions and asks. Because now when you believe in the dream, now you need to know details of how can you make the dream come true. This year, PASHA, for the first time, made our budget. We have been working with the government of the past 3 decades and providing them the recommendations. But this year, we took a plunge and made our budget recommendations publicly available for everyone, for all companies working in the IT industry, for all the stakeholders, just to see what will it take for the industry to grow. So it's a very exhaustive list because we wanted to, include startup recommendations as well, freelancer recommendations as well. But at the same time, we wanted to cover it all. And then we also, did a comparative analysis of policies for IT industry. So where we looked at policies in Pakistan versus policies in India, China, Philippines, Indonesia, fiscal policies, monetary policies, human capital policies, innovation policies, just to give, again, more depth to the conversation that those, countries who have been in the same journey, how did they come up with initiatives and achieve that dream? So, this, this has been this thing, all this while obviously working very closely with the government on several initiatives, having several of small wins. We got a historic package last year, first ever financial incentive for the industry cash award. Just this year, SRB reduced the tax from 13% to 3%. So several of smaller wins over the period of time, but primarily the biggest win has been creating the understanding in the government that they need to start focusing their energies on the
that's something that's really helped shaping the regulatory and policy frameworks and business norms, that help determine how well the economic opportunity system works. And as you said, really connecting those dots, because there are, of course, multiple stakeholders. It's not just the industry on its own and PASHA on its own making that decision and sort of floating it out. There are a lot more government and official bodies also involved, authorities. I'd like you to also talk a little bit now about, developing that human capital, especially because your experience, given with your past, career experiences, we've all seen that, talent is one thing that's always going to be, I think the first cry of any organization, whether it's a tech company or not, actually. But PASHA has been doing a lot of work when it comes to skill development. And that's true because, we've seen that, even though you guys have been going to campus, you've been having campus conversations for over 2 decades now. And we've been part of a lot of those conversations with you guys earlier as well. We've seen that now, it's not just going to campuses or universities or building those linkages. There's a lot more that goes into skill development, because something I studied 10 years ago in college is now completely redundant, right? I'd like you to talk a little bit about the human capital development or the skill development work that PASHA has been doing, and what we should be looking at as we step closer into 2023.
So anyone who has met me knows how passionate I am for, the EdTech interventions, just because, again, in my previous life. But I'll be really honest with you, Aksa. It breaks my heart to say that Pakistan right now is facing skills emergency, digital skills emergency. What I mean by that, let's look at numbers, not disbelieve me. Out of 25,000 graduates that are coming out of universities, only 5 to 10% are ready for the industry to hire. So, out of 25,000, only 2,500 get jobs by the industry. The rest of them need some kind of skill development intervention. The second thing, in PASHA, we ran the survey asking the companies of how many job openings that they have. And we found that just in 140 companies, there were 20,000 job openings. So if you see that there is on one side, there are these graduates that are coming out of universities and are not getting placed anywhere. And on the other side, just 140 companies had 20,000 jobs. And
Yeah.
even Pasha has 1,000 companies. So if you, by this number, we project Pakistan to be currently having over 100,000 jobs. And if you want to be conservative, let's say 50,000 jobs, which
Yeah.
are not filled just because they are not able to find the right skill fit for that. And that in itself presents this problem statement that we are in. And now you see the key thing is, and I'm going to, the key, when we were working with the government, and how I was brought back to this passion was because when we were working with the government and we were looking at, growing IT industry and what are the factors, what are the bottlenecks, how can we really grow IT industry? Now, the unique position that Pakistan has been in is that since COVID-19, it has really accelerated Pakistan's position in the global industry. And so interestingly, there were more opportunities, and the difficulty was in not being able to get the projects or to really say yes to projects because there were no lack of the skill development or lack of resources to commit to those projects. So we realized that while marketing and sales continues to be one of the factors, currently it's no longer a bottleneck. One of the top bottlenecks, in addition to policy continuity, lack of policy continuity and lack of ecosystem, one of the top bottlenecks is lack of skilled resources. And unless that is addressed, we cannot really double the exports in 1 year, or we cannot really 2 years, and we cannot really accelerate the exports for the industry the way we want it to. So that brought us back to the drawing board and really think about, if we have to really take the industry to next level and skills resources is the dilemma, how can we really address it? And what role can Pasha really play? Now, the first thing that we did was really advocating the skill development programs in the government sector, just so that they can allocate funds, they can address the energies, just awareness of that they need to have skill development programs in order to bridge this gap. And we were, really happy that last year, we got, 10 billion allocated for skill development initiatives through different, government entities. The next step was that now when that allocation has come, so government asked us that, hey, what do you think? Which areas should we be really investing on? And, needed to felt the need to go back to the industry and not just give an answer on my own. So we went back to the industry and asked that, tell us, your requirements and tell us exactly where are those job openings and what are the top in demand areas. And that's how Skill Requirement 2021 came into being. It's available on our website. So we published a very small brief thing. We actually did it for the government, but then we thought to make it available online for everyone. But that skill requirement analysis captures the top in demand technology tracks nationwide as well as in different cities. That skill requirement analysis report became the input for PSEB, for Ministry of IT, for Ignite, for KPIT board, for Sindh, in developing their skill development programs, because they exactly knew the areas where industry needed help with. And that's how, it started to happen. And we also realize the role that we have to play in documenting this divide. So that was just one report. After that, we also launched The Great Divide very recently, which is actually documenting the divide between academia and industry. So we interviewed students and then interviewed HR managers and we compared the gaps of in the priorities that they had, and so we documented a lot of these things just to make our recommendations more informed. But in addition to that, we also felt that we need to work on a skill development map, and need to look at from a 5-year window perspective. But while eventually we know that the root cause of it all is with the supply, is with the quality of education that is being imparted actually at the school level and then goes up to college and university level, we realize that it's important that we need right now temporary fixes as well, short-term solutions, short-term projects that can address this current dilemma. So PASHA launched 2 major initiatives. One was a pilot initiative, which was Academia Bridge Program, in which an industry professional, so it was an MOU with SSUET in Karachi actually, and one of the companies, Contour, and their industry professionals went to the university and taught students the labs of some of the key courses. So for web engineering, the theoretical part was covered by their own teacher, but the labs were delivered and taught by the actual practitioner and the industry expert. 250 students were part of that pilot, and that was really successful because out of those 250, several of them got then hired just because they had first-hand exposure from an industry expert. And so then that pilot was picked up by the government and then was scaled to 1,600 students in the North region by the Ministry of IT. The second initiative that we did was because when we looked at, again, this gap of this dilemma of lack of skilled resources, we felt, we looked at how other countries have addressed similar situations. And we found the model of boot camps to be the most effective model for coding areas and for the technology tracks. And in Pakistan, we found that the model had not yet been implemented to a very extensive extent, and while it was being delivered in an isolated manner, but not to a very major scale. So in that case, PASHA took a responsibility as a strategic partner to really convince all the industry leaders to come on board and form a consortium in a first ever historic initiative of its own. 22 industry leaders came on board, formed a consortium to train 4,000 unemployed graduates in a program funded by Pakistan Software Export Board and Ministry of IT. So that program has been launched, we called it Tech Lift, just so that the title is more appealing for students. You can go look at the website techlift.pk as well. So that and with that program, we actually had 3 primary objectives. First was apart from getting the consortium to come and helping them come on the same page and building the structure, but our first and foremost objective was coming up with a framework, national framework, scalable framework to conduct, deliver, and scale boot camps across Pakistan. So that was the first thing. The second thing, second objective was the job creation. Those 4,000 are the unemployed graduates, the ones that have not gotten a chance. So, they getting trained by the industry themselves and getting them placed in the industry. And the third objective was strengthening the learning and development divisions within the industry, so that industry gets in, that practice of training and, hiring those raw, talented, unemployed graduates and training them and then, getting them to do that. So finalizing that entire model. That program is currently being in action. We have already finished our advanced cohorts, and it was amazing to see. I want to take the name, one of our companies, one of our member companies, which is part of the consortium. They trained I think 80 students, and they ended up, or 85 students, and they ended up hiring 65 of them the moment the boot camp ended. But the thing is, because it's a leading company, those 20 students also immediately were then picked up by other companies. So it really, because it's for the industry, by the industry. So the success of the program is very geared towards job placement and getting people. It's actually their need, not a,
Yeah.
not a money making thing, but yeah. So
Yeah.
that
So
sums up.
and
But
I
this
think
is,
it's, of course,
we see this, right, we see this as just the beginning of the
yeah.
journey that we are on in strengthening the skill development initiatives for the IT.
That too, and as you said, it's mutually beneficial. So all those who are part of the consortium or even the member companies at large will benefit from it, even if they're not part of it, right? And that's something
Yeah.
that really encourages these organizations to really step up and also contribute, because we've seen that there are successful technology companies based out of Pakistan that really want to give back. I think that culture remains very strongly in our DNA as a country, and I think it's great to see that this is one sector that's always forthcoming when it comes to bringing their energies together for a better cause. I'd like you to talk a little bit about how PASHA and a lot of the work that goes into the ICT industry has been disproportionately concentrated between KLI or the larger cities, right? But this is something that I know that PASHA was actively working on, especially I think just before COVID hit. We had seen some road shows and other things. Are there plans to because we've seen innovations from cities that are otherwise not named in the top 3 or the top 5, but we've seen a lot of innovation coming in from those areas, right? How would you say this has changed and will continue to evolve for you guys?
I mean, I think this goes without saying, because we see that as I mentioned, that the prerequisite for growth of IT industry is not depending upon in which city you are in or in which house you are. It's as long as you have internet connection, then you can be at any part of the world and can be contributing. But at PASHA, I completely agree. While the and for the IT industry, we also saw that the major concentration had been in KLI. I think a lot of it had to do with the the better internet connection, better facilities in KLI, which meant that IT companies felt the need to move. But it's changed in COVID, because then even I've been to Skardu, and I've met 30 companies over there, which with bare minimum internet connection were really working over there. And it was amazing to see the kind of hardships that they were facing, and still they were contributing in that way, and they were still serving, and they're still providing outsourcing services. So we've seen that all of that change. And at PASHA, we have been very cautious to take steps in bringing the other cities as well in the initiatives that we do. As you mentioned as well, that we did some road shows before COVID-19, but after COVID-19, we started supporting different activities that were happening in other cities, just so that we firstly start expanding our outreach network. So for example, the Technician event that happened in Bahawalpur, PASHA was one of the, key strategic partners for that event. And, we encourage all our member companies from Lahore and from Islamabad to go to Bahawalpur specifically to be part of that event. Then similarly, events in, Skardu, Gilgit, Abdabad, and missing Faisalabad, that we have really, encouraged and partnered with over the period of time. But we also felt the need to come up with a systematic model of supporting and building these, this site. So, earlier this year, we launched regional chapters under PASHA, which is basically that we are setting up or in addition to KLI, we are setting up our regional chapter where there's going to be a convener that is going to be selected representing PASHA and ensuring that Pasha's presence and their voice is being heard on all levels and not just on the city level. And we are happy to have launched our first regional chapter in Faisalabad in October, because we had, so there's, entire process of, as you know, with the trade body and with the companies, we follow the process of elections and with the voting and all. So we set up our first chapter in Faisalabad, but again, we see this as a very starting point. The next chapter in line is with, Peshawar or Aptabad, or and this the second one is in the South Punjab side. So these are just on the immediate thing, and Hyderabad as well. On our radar, while we continue to work with these companies, we continue to encourage these companies to spread the word in their networks and also, bring more companies in their cities. We feel that this is just the beginning of our journey in that regard.
And you talk about, Pasha has also, of course, always focused on bringing or showcasing, the work that is done in the ICT industry. So it's the annual, it's called the Oscars of the ICT industry in Pakistan. And we've recently seen a lot of milestones and a lot of wins. I'd like you to talk a little bit about the Pasha ICT Awards that were held recently, and also, the upcoming APICTA Awards. It's coming to Pakistan after many, many, many years of us going around the world showcasing our work. How do you feel about that? And yeah, what should we be expecting?
So I mean, we just got the awards. I think it was the biggest Pasha ICT Awards event that we ever had, with 700 industry leaders coming and supporting and celebrating IT industry with us, and hidden technology heroes that existed. And we had such an overwhelming response, but more than 900 product applications received, and for those working in product side, that's not a small easy feat. And for us to screen and identify and shortlist 80 winners out of those 937 applications was something that our judges, our esteemed judges, we had more than 80 judges, had a huge task and very competitive process to follow. But the response, the event has been great, and we have just concluded that event. But more than that, we are really excited and geared up to host Asia Pacific ICT Awards. As you said as well, it's being done for the first ever time in Pakistan, and in which more than 200 foreign industry leaders will be coming to Pakistan, from Hong Kong, from China, from Singapore, Australia, Malaysia, Korea, just to name a few. And this is very unique. This is a historic event in its making, because it's for the first ever time Pakistan will witness, and Pakistan's IT industry will witness an event of this scale, and this many industry leaders coming all at one time. So we're very excited for it. It's kicking off on 7th December, from 7th December to 11th December in Islamabad. So anyone who is any remotely linked with IT industry should make sure to save these dates and be in Islamabad in these dates, as this will be a new chapter for Pakistan altogether.
So Hira, lastly, what should we be looking at in 2023 from Pasha? There's also, of course, as every year goes, a new CEC as well. We've seen some interesting developments from your end. What should we be looking at?
I think Pasha is on its journey of transformation. So what you should be looking at is it only getting, stronger and getting more developed with passage of time. And, we are really thankful for industry for showing us support and really, expanding Pasha's voice. One of the reasons why Pasha's voice has also strengthened is also obviously because Pasha has grown from, we used to be like 200, 250 representative body, and now we have more than 1,000 companies, more than 600 active companies. So we, so you will only see it getting more stronger and better with time, inshallah.
Definitely. And, we've really seen that, this is the ICT industry has really been at the heart of all like economic changes for over a decade now. And, it's only going to get better from here. When we look at economies like Pakistan or even others, economic competitiveness really depends on, the productivity level. And in the knowledge economy, ICT sectors will really like dominate that, as you said. This is a close from our side. Hira, if there's any other closing comment, we'd love to take that. And thank you very much for taking out the time.
Thank you, Aksa. Thank you for sitting and talking about PASHA. I think anyone who's working in IT industry, do check out the reports that we have published, from salary surveys to different HR reports. This will help you. Our reports have not just been for the government side, but also for the individuals working in the IT industry. Our salary benchmarking service help them negotiate better rates with their companies. But more importantly, we feel that we are at a cross point in history of Pakistan, where IT industry in Pakistan is now really, in its tipping point, ready to explode. And we look forward to working with all stakeholders and taking it to the next level, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that
Thank
closing
you.
comment.